Hello and welcome. CT here. Today I am doing the spoiler review of Knock at the Cabin 2023 by M. Night Shyamalan and Universal. This movie is based on a book called The Cabin at the End of the World by, and I apologize if I mess this up, Paul Tremblay or Tremblay. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say the last name. The book and the movie differ in a lot of ways, so we are going to be talking about the movie today. This is a spoiler review. The story is about a family of three on vacation at a cabin in the woods. Four strangers show up, knock at the door, and tell them, one of you must kill the other. And they're very specific about it, in a willing sacrifice. And the movie is about, okay, are these people just some crazy cult? Are they just crazy? Do they believe in something that isn't true, like a cult might? Are they just mentally ill, or is the world actually ending? That is the entire basis for the plot, and that's what the story is. If that kind of plot interests you, the movie will probably interest you because the whole thing is just a back and forth of, it could be real, oh, maybe not. Well, it's got to be real. Well, it can't be real, that kind of thing. Something I noted before I went to theaters to watch this, there are a lot of mixed reviews out there. General consensus seems to be it's either good or it's not. Shyamalan, the director, is well known for hit or misses, so it's an understandable reaction. It just didn't do it for some people, and other people thought, hey, I liked it. The movie's rated R for violence and language, but I thought it was pretty toned down and not worth an R. But that's what it is. I even took a look at that R rating on the web. The comedy movie The Happening is rated R too. Curious. I don't think either is worth an R rating, but I suppose they decided for the subject matter it was worth an R. On to the characters and story. We have the two dads, Andrew and Eric. Then we have their adopted daughter, Wen, and the four strangers, whose names are Leonard, Redmond, Adrian, Sabrina. I want to talk about the plot and these characters, probably more than the technical stuff, just because I'm not a professional reviewer. I don't have a ton of experience in these things. With that said, most of this is going to be about the story. But I will go into The Sound of Music. I thought it was good. Sometimes I thought it was a little bit much, a little unnecessary, or a little ill-fitting. Otherwise, I thought the sound and the music, good choices. I had no problem with it, really. The effects, also good. I thought everything looked really convincing, works for me. The directing and cinematography, I believe the story could have been structured differently. I think it would have benefited greatly from it. I know a lot of movies do this, but I think it's a tried and true formula, so I think this movie should have done it too. And that is, introduce your main characters, this family. Let us get to know them. Let us care about them. Let us know their background. That way, once things start happening, we care. You will still care when you watch the movie, because of course you're going to care about an innocent family for the most part. But that's the default is, oh, well, they're people and they seem like innocent people, so I don't want them to get hurt. How much more powerful is it when you're watching something and you're like, oh, I like them. No, don't have this bad thing happen. The movie does it like this. Things start off right away. Immediately, the main stranger, Leonard, big guy, tattoos, bald head. The movie starts with this, which surprised me. I didn't think it would get going like that right away. Meets the little girl, talks to her a little bit, and then the whole cabin sequence happens where he knocks at the cabin with the others and terrorizes these people, really. And I think it should have been done differently. I think we should have gotten to know these three characters instead of it starting off with the action right away when we don't know anything about these people. Just, oh, look, a little girl. Okay, random guy talking to a little girl. Okay. That's pretty much my thought process as I was watching. Just, okay, shrug. And I think it would have done a lot better if we had spent at least 20 minutes or so knowing about her and her life. So at the point when a stranger walks up to her, we'd be like, no, Wen, don't talk to strangers. It still happens, but it's like a conversation that just has to happen. And it's just so meh. Instead, what this movie does is there's flashbacks. They utilize flashbacks. I feel flashbacks are one of those devices that should be used when they should be used. I don't know how else to really say that. It's just random not necessarily intrusive. I feel like the spots where the flashbacks happen were chosen relatively well. If you've seen the movie, let me know if you agree or disagree. I would have preferred to actually care about the family once things start going down. Instead, the movie begins right away, things are going down, and we have this family now stuck in this cabin with these 4 strangers who, one by one, die, and bad things are happening around the world, or so they say. There is a TV in the cabin, and they keep turning it on to share, oh, see, look, this disease is running rampant across the world. This is a sign. This is one of the things that we said would happen. Everyone's going to die in these big catastrophic events like this disease or this giant wave of a tsunami. There is definitely enough here where you can be like at least halfway through the movie. I wasn't watching the time or anything. I think it was at least an hour in. This movie is about an hour and a half, and I think it was about an hour in where it's still going back and forth enough where you can go, well, tsunamis and people being sick in the hospital with viruses. The news always talks about the bad stuff, right? That this stuff happens. And it does a really good job of having the characters that are being held captive also being on that same where they're just, we must have been captured by a bunch of crazy people. They're just cultists who believe in something insane or just mentally ill and have a shared delusion, one of the characters suggests at a certain point. Here's where I haven't read the book, but I've heard about the book enough. In preparation for this review, the book specifically keeps it ambiguous. The point isn't whether or not it's the end of the world. The point is about this family and whether it's okay to expect someone to have to sacrifice a loved one for the rest of the world. Is that worth it? Is that something that they should do? Should anyone have to do that? What kind of higher power or God or whatever would ever demand such a thing? That's the book. The movie, if you're really stretching credulity, you're stretching the reasoning that you have to be applied to all of these situations that eventually are happening out in the world, you could argue it's ambiguous. There is the slimmest possibility you could make that argument that this is not real. There is no apocalypse. Personally, no. It's not ambiguous. It's clearly real. There's a point in the movie where one of the strangers dies. Planes are dropping out of the sky. For me, the ambiguity is over. Sure, there could be some kind of terrorist attack or some kind of random malfunction that just affected aircraft everywhere because there's something going on in the atmosphere. Too much pollution. Who knows? However, that's a coincidence too far, especially because of the timing, because it happens right when this person dies. To the credit of the movie, it's clear one of the characters, Andrew, is the most skeptical and determined not to believe. He's one of the dads. He's just so determined to keep his family. He refuses to believe there's any scenario where he would actually have to sacrifice to save the world. And even if it's all real and he would need to sacrifice someone or he would need to be sacrificed, he thinks, why? Why should I have to give up what I love? Or why do I need to die? Or why do any of us need to for them? These people who are full of hate. There's a whole speech at the end of this movie that's a little, well, not the very end, but near the end, where both dads make a speech. It's fine. I thought there was a little much. I feel like it would have worked really, really well if they had cut a few of the lines that each of them say, because they go too far in what they're saying to the point where it seemed silly that they were saying this. It also didn't help that I didn't know them well enough to be like, would they talk like this or are they just saying lines? You get a clear cut, yeah, it's happening. There are the 4 strangers who are meant to represent the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, allowing for variations in the mythology and written works that reference the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The most popular include War, who is represented by red, and the stranger is wearing a red shirt, who represents war. Pestilence, meaning plagues and diseases, which is represented by yellow, so the character, the stranger, is wearing a yellow shirt. Famine, represented by a person wearing a black shirt. And then finally Death, who is the white or pale rider, who makes up the last stranger wearing a white shirt. Based off what occurs in the movie, the stranger in the yellow shirt, Sabrina, is Pestilence. She's also a nurse, so that goes well with, okay, healer, and diseases. So polar opposite right there. We have the character wearing the red shirt who calls himself Redman and is war. Violence man does to each other. Then we have Adrian wearing black. She is famine, and she's also a line cook. So there you go again with the famine and cook, polar opposites. And Leonard, white, is death. His death sentencing humanity to death. I would say, because of my background, about the time one of the characters also starts talking about what's going to happen, that there's going to be great catastrophes. Then we get into actually seeing things that are happening around the world. If you don't have my background or you're just not really thinking about it that much, I don't think you would get it without them spelling it out for you. And a character later does spell it out for you. They're the four horsemen. I don't have a problem with them spelling it out because without my background, I don't think I would have had a clue. The character of Eric also says that the four, also being the horsemen, he says something that really confused the message for me. And that was that the four represent more than that the being the four horsemen, that they actually represent aspects of humanity. That Redman, who is red, wearing the red and is war, is malice, still fits into war, so I was like, okay. Nurturing, who is Adrian, wearing black and is supposed to be famine. And then healing, which is Sabrina in the yellow shirt, pestilence, and then guidance. So they say 4 things. I'm going to malice, nurturing, healing, guidance. That didn't make sense to me. The 4 aspects of humanity are malice, nurturing, healing, and guidance. I was really confused at that point in the movie. I was following along, like going, oh yeah, the 4 horsemen, And then he went off on, they're actually the aspects of humanity, which felt like a Shyamalan thing, honestly. If it's in the book, I apologize. But if it's in the book, then please explain it to me, because I don't get it. You could say the woman who's the nurse as a healer, the healer ties into the nurse then, and therefore pestilence, diseases, representation works. The malice referring to violence human to human, and therefore war works. Nurturing and guidance, though I'm struggling. The speech of that at that point really muddled the message for me. It started losing me. Nurturing could be because the woman is a mother, and then guidance because the man is a teacher, but those things tie into the characters and not the horsemen, famine and death, respectively. So, really muddled. I did not understand how those 4 were the aspects of humanity. And there's also just more in the speeches where they're just going off on, they've always hated us for being gay. Screw them. It's just, throughout this movie, you get floods, disease, flame and pieces falling to earth, and then there's eventually be darkness, and everybody dies if they don't sacrifice one of their own. And so here's where I say it's just loosely Bible things, because in Revelation, you can tell this person, whether it was the author or the person making the movie, Shyamalan, they clearly just took aspects from the Bible and threw them in there, just mixed them all in there. Because the Bible version, for the most part, is meant to be an apocalypse where a lot of people die from war, killing most people. Then come the famine and diseases. Then catastrophes, natural disasters, and the like to wipe out the rest. But this is clearly chosen at random. That's fine. This isn't meant to be the Christian God doing all this, even though they're taking pretty much everything from that. They're doing their own interpretation, and maybe that even ties into the fact that, well, is this even really happening? Or are these people just insane and made this all up? Is that this doesn't perfectly match the written sources? That could be intentional, in which case, okay. In general, it's elements affecting the earth to destroy itself and humanity. That's the apocalypse way. You don't actually get to see a lot when you're watching the movie. If you're coming for spectacle, be disappointed, since the entire point of this is to be stuck in that cabin with those people, not knowing if it's real or not. And the movie does that really well. I enjoyed it. It kept my attention, and I was interested. I was going back and forth. Real or not? Real or not? But you do get a definitive ending. It's real. The most obvious to me that it's real is planes falling out of the sky. That would be a heck of a coincidence that when this person died, that's when that happened all over the world. Then we have, right after the final stranger dies, A huge storm comes overhead as darkness fills the sky. Lightning starts striking everywhere. That's a lot of coincidences to not be real and directly a result of their deaths. The four strangers were brought together to represent the four horsemen to bring on the apocalypse should a sacrifice not be made. Like Abraham and his son in the Bible, he was meant to sacrifice his son. Granted, in the Bible, God doesn't make him go through with it, but in this, it seems clear that humanity must have fallen enough over time that whoever, whether it's the Christian God or someone else, has decided, no, someone needs to pay for everyone else's sins, everyone else's failures. As unfair as that is, as even a character points out in the movie, which of course it's unfair, it's ridiculous. But that's how it works, I suppose. The story, then, is also very definitive in that this is all happening. There is an apocalypse happening around the world, and the end will come as all four die and things are going to crap. What truly cements it to me as, yeah, this all happened and this is over now and it's going to be okay, is that at the very end, two of the family members survive after sacrificing one of their own, and the cabin that they were in catches fire and burns the whole area or that whole building to cover up what happened there, erase the traces of what occurred. Later, a song comes on the radio that has to do with them. They had a song they were all jamming to in the car in one of the flashbacks when they were on the way to the cabin. That song starts playing the moment they turn the car on. To me, was a signal that God or whoever is responsible was telling them, it's over now, sacrifice wasn't in vain, all is well now. That's how I saw it. And I like Define. Sometimes ambiguous endings can work, but in this case I was actually glad to get it. There's too many things in real life that are ambiguous, and that doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do it in your work, but I like it when I get an ending that is at least mostly I understand where it's going or where it could go. So I like this movie. I recommend this movie. A yay over a nay. Yay or nay, should you watch this movie? I say yay because it's worth at least one watch. I would also recommend the book. I haven't read it, so it's not like I can give a personal take on whether this book is any good or not, considering the movie entertained me enough, and the book is supposed to be quite different, but also similar. The book could be the same scenario, but a completely different story, mostly. Lots of things are going to be the same since it's an adaptation, but still, I bet it'd be new enough that it could be really cool. So I recommend the movie, and I recommend the book. You should go check them out. Let me know in the comments. Did you see this movie? What worked for you? What didn't? Did you like it? Did you hate it? If you haven't seen this movie, what kinds of things would you like to see or would you have liked to see? Thank you for watching. Do like and subscribe. It would help me a lot. Life's rough. Remember to stay entertained. Bye.